welcome to Dark Side Shorts, and today we'll be covering the Trump shooting, the why, the how, and the what now. But before we begin, I would like to share with you Corey Compa. I hope I got the name right. He was a 50-year-old fire chief and is thankfully the only victim of this rare example of political violence in the Western world. He died saving his family. There is a charity account that is raising money for his family. I will put a link in the description if you wish to add to it. Now, I know this is a bit different than my usual videos, but I thought it'd be worth doing. And to start off with, we're going to take a look at the why. So, why was President Trump shot? There are a couple of reasons, mainly. Firstly, and obviously, we have American gun culture. Now, in America, the right to bear arms, and an extremely high rate of shootings. Now, there are other countries which have similar gun laws, perhaps not as lax as Americans, perhaps some tight, some more controlled, that have high gun ownership but don't have so many public shootings. Now, the second reason, I'm going to put this down to the demonization of politics, is the best way I can put it. We've all seen it on YouTube, X, Twitter, where essentially anyone you disagree with gets compared to a mid-century man with a moustache, whether that would be the German or the Soviet variety. It's pretty common now in politics for it to happen, not just on social media platforms, but political supporters chanting in the streets. Hell, you can even go on the mainstream news channels and watch supposed Democrats call, for example, Trump every word under the sun, the second coming of fascism, Nazism, Adolf Hitler, Mussolini. And you can equally find Trump supporters or Republicans on mainstream media comparing Biden to Mao, Stalin, communism and everything. Now, this just is an American phenomenon, obviously. In where I live, Britain, for example, there are several politicians that are regularly compared to mid-century moustache men of both flavours. It is an unfortunate side effect that we now can't seem to be able to have a civil political debate. And now the final factor, the why this happened. When you have this highly charged political environment, unfortunately, sooner or later, violence is going to happen. In Britain, we've had a Labour MP killed, a Conservative MP stabbed and nearly killed. We've had cases of school teachers driven out of jobs and going into hiding because they've contradicted religion A or religion B. We've had, in our recent elections, we've had some candidates being threatened and heckled on the streets because of what their view on Gaza was and being called all the silly names that go with it, and increasing levels of sectarianism. And this is something that, just looking from the outside in, is happening in America as well. An increasingly loud and vocal minority on both sides who immediately jump to 11 on the antagonism scale. And is it really surprising in that environment we have an increase of political violence when, in what would be reputable mainstream sources, we've got people saying comparing Trump, for example, he's the biggest threat since Hitler, he needs to be dealt with, he's got to be targeted. You say that enough times, some person with mental difficulties or illness, or someone who like most assassins, young assassins, just wants to make their name in the history books, is going to do something stupid. And it would actually surprise me a lot that if, on both sides, Biden and Trump, there hadn't been some guys who had taken a rifle to a convention at least once on both sides and had chickened out or looked at the security and thought they couldn't get in. And now time for the fourth why. Now, this is breaking, and we'll probably hear more over the coming weeks. But, and I'll put a big full-body but on this, President Trump's security detail, this would be his security, the Secret Service that handles it, had been warning for a long time they didn't have enough numbers to do the job properly, which has loads of implications I don't even want to think about as to why that would be the case. Now, the how. Our assassin, let's start off with. He was one Thomas Matthew Crooks. He was from Bethnal Park, Pennsylvania, approximately 70 kilometres, 43 miles from the site of the attempted assassination. He graduated from that town's high school, and he went to the Community College of Allegheny, or the CCAC, and got an associate degree in engineering science. From what has so far been released about him, he's an interesting, as far as you can say, fella, or was. He got banned from his school sports club, or kicked out. The wording's changed depending where I've read it, because he wasn't that good enough shooter. But apparently he had access to an assault rifle style weapon and a high powered scope. He'd been registered as a Republican, but has given to at least one left wing or blue, or whatever you want to call it, organisation in recent times. And one of the more weird things I've seen come up a few times, he was a big fan of Demolition Rants, a YouTube channel known for its guns and demolition content. I follow a lot of channels that have guns and demolition content, and I'm just going to say, taking a pot shot at my local MP or the Prime Minister has never crossed my mind. So, he was apparently bullied at school. That's been come up several times. And as far from motivation, hopefully when the feds unlock his mobile phone, we might get some, or it might be they might find some at his house in his writings. So how did he do it? Well, on the day of the Trump's political rally, he carried an AR-15 style rifle to Butler, Pennsylvania, and got on top of a building that was approximately, from I've heard several different distances, just over 100 yards from where President Trump would make his speech. Now, when he was climbed up onto that building, he was apparently spotted by several members of the public who attempted to alert the Secret Service and the local police. And the building had been pointed out during a pre-rally walkthrough by the Secret Service and the local police that it could be a possible sniper spot. Now, you obviously had the local police there, the Secret Service, and the Secret Service's own snipers to cover the president and to keep an eye out for snipers. For those who don't know much about the Secret Service snipers, they are essentially trained how to conduct an assassination so they can see one. When they are there, they are looking for any guy in camo gear carrying a suspicious package, any guy hiding in the bushes that could have a weapon, a suspiciously parked car with its window a bit down, and they know the difference between someone carrying a rifle, for example, or an AR-15 or some type of sniper weapon, and just someone with a long lens. This is their bread and butter job, that's what they are there for. But somehow, Thomas Matthew Crooks, despite being spotted by members of the public and possibly police, crawled along the roof of where he was, the building he was on, and managed to get off 5 shots, hitting President Trump in the ear and injuring at least one member of the audience, and unfortunately killing another member of the audience, as I previously mentioned. He was swiftly taken out by Secret Service snipers, and President Trump obviously was rushed to hospital. And now we go to the what now. The fact the guy even got this close is a balls up of epic proportions. You know, Secret Service snipers and most military snipers are trained out to a fair few hundred yards of range. To allow someone to get close enough to just outside of 100 yards to take a shot, that's failure. There's no other way of putting it. That is failure on the verge of incompetence. There's no other way of calling it that. Hopefully, it was just incompetence. That someone somewhere made a massive mistake. The head of the Secret Service has apparently come out and said that essentially the buck stops here. But if the rumours are true that Trump's presidential Secret Service detail had been begging for extra people, and they were repeatedly denied that support, that's a problem. Now, what else is there after the what nows? Well, if you look at some bookie spreadsheets online, I'll try and find one and show it now. Trump's chances of winning the presidency have skyrocketed to it's almost a surefire thing. Now, I've heard sources that claim to have talked to people within inside the Democratic Party and have basically said that's the day we've lost the election, there's nothing we can do. So assuming Trump's winning the election, and earlier in the day he picked J.D. Vance as his presidential VP running mate. This is a guy who went from who would never vote for Trump, never support Trump, to being his running mate. He's viewed as an effort, from the source I've seen, to court evangelical Christian voters who may be wary of supporting Trump because he's been a Democrat and he's been married before and divorced and all that. Vance, he's from what I know of him, he's pretty popular, and he's produced memoirs, and in his state and around, he's very popular with the core of the right of the Republican target demographics. He's relatively youthful at 39, and some say he may be the forefront of a new generation of Make America Great Again Republicans. So it's an interesting pick. If the what's the word coming out of the Democrat Party is true, he's probably odds-on favourite to be VP, and then after Trump, odds-on favourite possibly to be the president, or at least the presidential nomination for the Republican Party in the next election. Now, the other what now? There's been a lot of conspiracy theories going around already from the left and the right, how it was, I've seen the words as hoaxes, setups, and casualty actors, and all manner of things being spun around, and this is to be unfortunately expected when we have a small minority on either side that are willing to compare everything the other side does to mid-century moustache men, either of the German or Soviet variety. Now, foreign policy-wise, the area that will affect this channel the most, Vance has been particularly critical of the US continued support for Ukraine, but on the other hand, Trump does have friends in Europe. He's particularly friendly with the new head of NATO, so Ukraine could go either way depending on how the cards fall when it comes to American support. In areas the two men have differed on, Vance has made a stand against allowing women who are the victims of rape or incest from having access to abortions. Now, that's going to pay well to his evangelical base, but Trump has more liberal. Yeah, he's still a Republican, but he's more of a liberal Republican than Vance. Apart from that, they agree on a lot of stuff, such as across-the-board tariffs, deporting millions of undocumented migrants, and aggressive downsizing of federal bureaucracy, which is all meat and bones Republican fodder, essentially. Nothing too radical if you're running as a Republican. Now, what else was this assassination attempt going to mean? Well, I'm not exactly sure in the long term for a lot of things. Like I've said, the foreign policy-wise, the stuff that affects this channel, it could be interesting. It could affect Ukraine. Currently, Trump is not the biggest fan of NATO, but the new head of NATO is a friend of his, and so we will have to see. Now, if more comes up on this issue, I will probably cover it again. And if you want me to do more of this type of content, like, comment, and subscribe, and fire away your own personal comments in the comment section.